Let's show everybody what the 3-6 profile is about.
Yeah, let's talk about this. This is one of the more, in a way, it's a very profound transitional profile. It's moving on to the left angle process, and it's the last transition before we really get into the juxtaposition and the left angle. It is the
Mhm. So
most
we
out
have
in the
our
world.
lovely house analogy here. Do you
Yeah,
want
it's
to
just
explain it like last time?
sure. It's just that the 3-6 is the most out in the world in a way, and so that's why they experience their 3-6ness so much because it's juxtaposed to others. That third line is this. It was the martyr role model, and the martyr is the person who stands by their principles, bumps into things, does stuff, and it's exemplified by they're walking up the staircase to the second floor on the right hand side. They're not the foundation. They're not sitting on the second floor, just like a second line, not knowing. They're in movement. They're moving
Mhm.
between the two. And then the sixth line is up on the roof. But that's not the first 30 years of their process, 28.6 years, really, but 28 to 30 years of their process. It's spent as a third line. So really, they spend their first part of their life as a 3-3, essentially,
Mm.
getting into every last thing. They don't have that up on the roof stage yet. That becomes more objective. And so they're down in the world times 10. That's the point.
Mm.
They're down in the world times 10, but they're yearning for perfection. And that's what helps drive them up onto the roof as a metaphor to be able to look out over everything. I can't see anything from in here. I don't like it anymore. I've done many things. I'm not a natural 3-3. I'm waiting to go up on the roof and
Mhm.
need to stand back some. So that's what this up on the roof phase is, but it doesn't happen for the first 30 years.
Mhm. Now let's get into some of the fun core traits, right? So 3-6's desire, exploration, and new experience. They have an inclination to stay put and be responsible and be a role model for others. This is coming from their six, right? And
Mhm.
they balance exploration and observation. And they are nourished by their home life, but also for the freedom to travel and experience things. Danny, do you have anything to add?
Just the travelers. It's the 4-6s and 3-6s are the travelers, not the only ones, but they want to get out. Nope. Learning and authority learns best through the experiential way. That's that third line process, bumping into things. Despite old soul wisdom, which is technically inherent for all six lines, perfectionism challenges learning from mistakes. And that's funny, this perfectionism word, there it is. The Yeah, they seek that perfection. This learning and authority is deeply involved with that process. A deep desire to experience life fuels a need to be actively engaged, in the world. It's sort of taking off on the second bullet point. Feeling safe and secure is essential to fully opening up to learn. That's not quite as true in that first part of their process. They learn to make it be true as they try and regain their optimism. That's what it's happening. That's the going up on the roof is to regain that optimism is a big part of it. And then, although appearing self-sufficient, 3-6s need the love and support in a relationship. I mean, even if they're a single definition, but they still bump into it and move out of it and bump into it, and they need extra support in that way, or else they won't get what we all humans need. So something to keep in mind.
Mhm. So, challenges and ways to get empowered, right? So, perfectionism can strain relationships. There could be themes of indecision and fence sitting. The third line trial and process is critical for development, but the sixth line's optimism can be clouded by the third line pessimism.
Yes.
And authority and wisdom emerge through experience and self mastery. Anything to add?
Yes, it's just important to notice that what's happening when they go up onto the roof as a metaphor to try and get out of that third line phase, because they need to, is to recognize the deepness in which anything regarding pessimism or this didn't work or I ran into too much stuff has set in. will add to the length of time of clearing that out of your vision while you're up on the roof is there to basically wipe it all off and get back to your optimistic state, which is fueled by a certain amount of, wanting things to be perfect. And so this becomes your a la carte of what do I really need to be perfect? Because some things you do, and that's part of how you model for us. So you're not just being a jerk because you like it perfect at all. You're being correct.
Right?
Conclusion: 3 6s are sought out for advice and blessings. Well, I would say and help. Um, Embrace the journey of discovery through self growth, and unless they're bogged down by too much trauma in that first stage, and then it'll take a little longer. They recognize the wisdom of this third line and all its discoveries, and when they really start to see the wisdom of it, suddenly it all clears up. We like that. And trust in a process and the perfection that's possible, in our nine-centered life, in our life that must commune. And as soon as the sixth line feels trust, the perfectionism starts to go down. What's it really matter? That becomes part of the role model's process. The role model is really here to be an example of just being themselves. It's not to be Dr. Rogers. I mean, although that could be it. It's just to be themselves. So it's sort of a quiet process at the same time.
There was one question I was going to ask you, Danny, that I don't think our slides went over. Is what about so this is one of the last personal.
Destiny profiles. Yep.
Yes. So what about them? I guess makes them different from, let's say, a 6-3, which we haven't covered yet.
Well, because they're involved in their own personal process. Their discovery is so deeply, profoundly their own. And whereas the transpersonal process, sure, they have their own process, but it's highly dependent upon how they're looking out over the rest of everything else as it relates to them. They see a little further in that looking out over, in a sense. But either way, 6 lines is 6 lines is 6 lines. That living example of being themselves, finding the optimism as life moves on is literally this thing that they give to us. We need it.